All right, we're going to do rhombuses. Are you so excited? Okay, sorry. I was just trying to get that ready, so I was killing some time. Here we go. So a rhombus, remember, is a special parallelogram that has 4 congruent sides. So it's, we'll write up here, a rhombus is a special parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. That's what makes it special. Therefore, it has all of the properties of a parallelogram, plus it has another property, 2 more actually. Well, and they both have to do with the diagonals. So let's go over again, just for repetition's sake, the properties of a parallelogram. They have opposite sides are congruent. But in a rhombus, all the sides are congruent. So there you go. The next property is opposite angles are congruent. Okay. And then we have same side or consecutive angles are supplementary. So that works in all of those directions. And then we have the properties for the diagonals. In a parallelogram, we know that diagonals bisect each other. But in a rhombus, they do 2 other things. That marker's not good. In a rhombus, diagonals are perpendicular. Remember, that symbol means perpendicular. And remember what perpendicular means? They add up to 90. Or intersect at 90, sorry. I don't know what I'm saying. All right, so in a rhombus, diagonals are perpendicular. Had I drawn a beautiful rhombus, you would see that 100%. That's awesome because check it out. That creates 4 right triangles. And then that means you could use trig or the Pythagorean theorem, which we all know is super exciting. All right, and then it also has the property that the diagonals bisect the angles. And remember that bisect means cut in half. All right, so that means that this piece here is congruent to this piece, and so on, like that. This one too is congruent to this, and this one to that one. All right, let's do a couple examples. If WXYZ is a rhombus, find each missing measure. So this is the kind, again, that's more complicated seeming, like it just feels more complicated. And we're just going to go through and figure out everything that we can. So opposite sides are congruent. Well, in a rhombus, all sides are congruent. So I'm going to put 27 on all the sides. And then we know that the diagonals are perpendicular and that they bisect each other. So this is 21 right there. This one has been cut in half. It's 21 on each side. We know that angles bisect each other, or the diagonals bisect the angles. Sorry, I can't talk today. So that one's 51. But we also know that angles, opposite angles, are congruent, which means this is 51 and that is 51 also. All right, so we have a lot of information right there so far. Now we're going to try to figure out, or fill in down here and see if we need to find anything else. So XY is 27. WP was 21. PZ, oh, well, we don't know that one yet. But look, PZ is right here. And check out this piece. We could use trig to figure that out. So I'm going to redraw that triangle over here just so you can kind of see it. I wouldn't normally redraw this one, but just so you can see it. And this is the side we're looking for, PZ. So which trig problem, or which trig, I can't even talk, goodness. Which trig ratio will we use? So a little review. We have our little SOHCAHTOA that we use to help us figure it out. It's all based on the angle. So here's our angle. And based on that angle, we have the hypotenuse and the adjacent side. So we're going to want to use cosine. Cosine 51 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. We're going to multiply both sides by 27. So 27 cosine 51 equals x. Now we want to make sure our calculator is set to degrees, which mine is. And I'm just going to click 27 cosine 51. 17. All right, so PZ is 17. Which means XP is also 17, right? All right, let's look at the angles. XZW. XZW, we already found 51. XWZ, well, we don't have that one yet, so let's check that one out. XWZ, we want this whole angle. We do know that in a parallelogram, consecutive angles are supplementary. That means that these angles have to add up to 180. These together are 102. I'm going to write it out here. And this one we don't know. So we would do 180 minus 102 is 78 degrees. So together, that's 78. If you have any questions about this, let me know. I know it's kind of crazy. And then we want to know ZYW. So ZYW, this one. Well, that one, we could figure out a couple different ways. We could, it's right here. We could say 180 minus 90 minus 51 and get 39. But we can also look at this. This angle is 78, so this has to be 78. The diagonal bisects the angles, so 78 divided by 2 is 39. So you can see there are a lot of ways to do this. I also could have found out the measure of PZ by using the Pythagorean theorem. Right here, I could have done 21 squared plus x squared equals 27 squared. Crazy, right? All right, the algebra ones of these seem a little easier too, don't they? If ABCD is a rhombus and AC is 18 and the perimeter is 52, find BD. So we want to know this length. All right, so let's fill out what we know. We know that AC is 18 and that diagonals bisect each other. So that means that each piece here would be 9. The perimeter is 52, but a rhombus has 4 congruent sides. So if we do 52 divided by 4, we get that each side is 13. And now what jumps out at me is, oh yeah, this is a rhombus. So the diagonals are perpendicular. And now I'm kind of focused on this triangle right here. Doesn't matter which one you choose, by the way. Do you see what we can do? We know 2 sides of a right triangle. We're looking for the third side. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. 13 is the hypotenuse, so that is equal to the 2 legs. We don't know one of them. So 169 equals 81 plus x squared. We're going to just solve that. And the square root of 88 is about 9.4. Now, we know this side is 9.4, that part of the diagonal. And what else do we know about the diagonals of a rhombus? They bisect each other, so that means this has to be 9.4. So the entire thing, BD, has to be about 18.8 units long. Crazy, right? All right, let's look at another one. This one, by the way, you see was nothing about angles. In D, if DEFG is a rhombus, find the measure of angle DGF. We want this whole angle here. So the way my mind works is I say, oh, well, I have information about this angle and this one. I know that in a parallelogram, and therefore a rhombus, consecutive angles like this are 180 degrees. So I know it's going to have something to do with 180. But first we need to figure out x. And what do the diagonals do to the angles of a rhombus? They bisect it, and bisect means cut in half. So these two pieces are congruent, equal. We're going to solve for x. All right, so I have x is 8. What should you do next? I hope you said substitute. I'm going to substitute in. So this is 33. Now, if I did this right, this should end up being 33 too. And it is, so great. Which means that this entire angle is 66 degrees. So 180 minus 66 is 114 degrees. So the measure of angle DGF is 114 degrees. One more, I think. Yeah, let's do this one. If EFGH is a rhombus, find the measure of angle FGE. So this time we only want this piece. But we're going to use that same general process idea. Actually, I'll do it a little bit different because I can see it another way. All of a sudden I just was like, oh, but that would be an isosceles triangle. Let me show you what I'm looking at. And again, this is just what jumped into my head. I don't think I've ever done this problem this way before. I do know that these are congruent because in a rhombus, diagonals bisect the angles. So I'm going to find x by setting up an equation. So go ahead and solve. All right, so I got 14 is equal to x. And now I'm going to substitute that in to figure out my angle measures. And again, if we did that right, this one will be the same. Perfect. Now, this time it jumped out at me that we have an isosceles triangle, and I know in an isosceles triangle, base angles are congruent. So these two angles would actually be the same. A triangle has 180 degrees. So I'm going to do 180 minus 126. That's 126 right there. Which leaves me with 54 degrees and two congruent angles. So I'll divide that by 2. 27 degrees. So the measure of angle FGE is 27. Now there are other ways to do that. So you're welcome to just start it by yourself and try and see if you can find another way. Otherwise, go do the practice for the rhombus problems.